Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I would like to thank you all for joining us today for our talk, Redefining Experiential Learning in the Humanities with Dr. Kate Birdsall. My name is Dr. Kate Fedewa, and I will be moderating today's discussion. I'm the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Programs in MSU's Department of Writing, Rhetoric, and American Cultures. I also teach in the Professional and Public Writing major, as well as the Writing minor, so I've had the pleasure of working with many of the same students that Dr. Birdsall works with at the Cube. I'm so excited to learn more about the center and its opportunities for students today. Before we begin the discussion, for those of you who are new to Zoom, I would like to direct you to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You may use the Q&A button to submit any questions you have at any point in the webinar. We'll keep track of your questions and be sure to address them to our speakers here today after their presentation. I would also like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel within the next few days for those who could not make it today, or if you'd like to watch it back at your leisure. So the only faces that will be shown today and on the recorded version are those of the presenters. You don't have to worry about your camera or your microphone. I would now like to introduce our speaker. Kate Birdsall is the director of the Cube and an associate professor in the Department of Writing, Rhetoric, and American Cultures, where she teaches in professional and public writing, as well as the minor in writing. Her academic interests include project management, user experience, content strategy, publishing in digital spaces, nonprofit communications, rhetoric and labor, and narrative identity. Outside of work, she enjoys spending time with her family, working on digital audio production, and binge watching British TV shows. Take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Kate, and thanks to everyone that was able to make it today. I'm really excited about this. The talk is entitled Redefining Experiential Learning in the Humanities. But per usual, as I was making the slide deck and putting everything together, I noticed some things. So we're going to talk about experiential learning, but we're going to talk about some other stuff too. Let's see, there we go. So this is me. I use she, her pronouns. You can find me at this email address. And if you want to tweet me, you can do that too, at KE Birdsall. So the big takeaway today, or what I hope you will take away today, is that the Cube benefits students and community partners by making the most of what Cal has to offer. We do a whole lot in this college, and a lot of times in the humanities, I think just overall, we can have a hard time articulating exactly why we do what is important. Why is it important? So I'm hoping that a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today may help us think about that. We build on our desire to do good in the world. This whole thing started, it began when I became director, it didn't exist, and then suddenly it did exist. And one of the things that I really wanted to infuse is a thing that I have in common with many of our students, and that is this desire to do good in the world, to make a positive impact. We want to take risks, make mistakes, and learn from those mistakes, because that's the best way to learn. And one of my big goals is to create a safe environment for our students to do that. We teach students to trust themselves, to trust their mentors, and to use what they learn to set goals for the future. So today I'm going to talk a little about our philosophy. The people involved, the people are the most important piece of this puzzle. The process we employ, there are actually multiple processes, but I've tried to make it a little simpler. A few of our projects and where I think we're going in the future. So beginning with philosophy, we experiment, and we do that in real time with actual projects. We publish projects that matter, whether that's to an individual, an organization, or a community. Our process is made up of research, client feedback, refinement, testing, and revision. And we apply our praxis to create desirable, functional, accessible deliverables for every partner. And you'll see the first of several Venn diagrams that I will show you today. Here, a part of our philosophy is the overlaps between experience, community, and mentorship. Experiential learning is it's super important, right? We talk about it a lot, and I think it cannot be overstated how experiential learning helps students to learn, not just by taking risks and making mistakes, but because the whole process of having concrete experience, reflecting and observing, abstract thinking that's then brought back into that experience and doing via active experimentation allows them to connect the theories and knowledge that we talk about in classrooms with situations outside the classroom. Community-based learning is a process that I think of as a genuine desire to establish authentic partnership between the CUBE team and a community partner, whether that community partner is one person who has asked us to update a website, or a very, very large nonprofit asking us for help with all kinds of things. In order to learn how to be citizens, we have to act as citizens. And again, our whole model provides a safe way for students to practice the kinds of citizens they want to be. We also want a connection to communities, right? It's important. We talk about it a lot in the humanities, and this is a way that communities and students can build those kinds of mutual connections. Mentorship is a huge part of this puzzle as well. We mentor students in both hard and soft skills. Writing is at the core. Writing studies are at the core. And if we start looking at this wheel of ways that we mentor, I'm hoping that the connection to writing is clear. But really in each thing, in each piece, we do a lot of thinking by writing. We do a lot of reflecting. Our deliverables often contain some sort of writing, whether that's content or publishing a book, et cetera. And all of these things align, I hope, to create a holistic mentorship experience in which our students can see the kinds of work that I believe public intellectuals ought to be doing. Good mentor, here I made a list of words, right? I really like verbs. I'm a writing professor. So when I start thinking about ways to describe things, here we are. And this is a lot. Being a mentor is in some ways incredibly easy, right? Because the most important thing I think is to just be authentic with people. Allow a little bit of vulnerability to creep into that relationship, show people that you are a human, and then they feel more comfortable being the humans that they are. I pulled this, I did some research on mentorship and found these verbs were coming up over and over and over again. So, maybe pick one, think about it. People are the most important part of what we do. I said that earlier. I'm repeating myself very deliberately. Without people, we would not have the CUBE. Indeed, we would not have a university. So as I talk about people, please keep that in mind, that none of this is about making a deliverable for, right? It's all about how we can help people in the world. Our leadership team, this is unfortunately hierarchical looking. And when we get to another diagram down the line, I think you'll see that it's a little less hierarchical. I am the director, working immediately, not under me, but next to me. My right-hand people are my graduate assistant, C. Woodman, who will be talking to you today. They are the project coordinator for many, many projects that we have going on right now. And I'm thrilled to be working with them. Emily Lynn is an undergraduate intern who came in, knew a little bit about web development, and is now our lead UX specialist. Emily has put in place processes that are sustainable and will help us just continue what we're doing. Emily is also working as a mentor this year for a couple of our UX people, with the idea that then those people will become the lead UX specialist. And then of course RAC is part of our team. Writing, Rhetoric, and American Cultures is my home department. Very, very graciously, RAC provides funding to us for our ongoing projects, even in years that feel like budgetary exigency, and I'm grateful for that. We've also got Dr. Casey McCardle, who has also been very generous in terms of funding, but who shares with me a deep-seated, genuine belief that students are why we exist, not as humans, right? But why we exist professionally, why we do what we do, why we show up every day, even in pandemic times. We've got two really, really strong faculty mentors who head up three across the two of them of our ongoing projects. Dr. Alex Hidalgo and Marohang Limbu are both fantastic mentors doing really great things for students. And I would be remiss not to mention Cal functional teams and the fact that I don't think we would ever get anything done without our Cal functional teams and our staff who look out for us and answer questions and teach us things as we go. Our structure, here's the one that's a little less hierarchical. I mean, it does imply a hierarchy, but go with me. So we've got the RAC administration team ultimately is who I report to. And again, great relationship there. They know what's up. Then from there, I've kind of divided things here in a way that I hope makes sense. In no way does this illustrate the scope. But we do have 4 ongoing RAC publications, one of which you'll hear about today, The Current. From there, I am sorry, I am nervous. We've got the RAC publications with faculty mentors in place there. I am the managing editor of The Current, so I might be a little biased. But in addition to that, we've got 2 peer-reviewed academic journals and a feminist film collective. GA1 is this year's C. Whitman. That just stands for Grad Assistant 1. Then we have 2 different categories of special projects, large and small. The large projects, a couple of which you'll hear about today, usually involve a structure that asks students to do some mentoring of one another. So you can see how that plays out. Smaller projects we try to do with limited labor. I have found over the years that for a smaller project where 2 or 3 people can do it, that often cultivates a real sense of ownership and desire to see the project succeed. Not that that doesn't happen with large projects, because it does. And then we have to run this thing. And right now, undergrad interns helping to run the thing is something I'd like to put in place in the future. Right now, I and C are running the thing. And by that, I mean budgeting, staffing, moving people around, putting the folks into the green bubbles, as it were. Oh no, there we go. And again, I said earlier, but each year our students graduate, right? And they go on to do amazing work in the world. And that means that if we've done it right, and I hope that we have, opportunities for mentorship roles become available to a new group of students. My goal is always to have overlap, to let students figure out what process works for them, and then to teach them how to articulate that process in a way that they can give to someone else and show that someone else what works. So that's that. Those are the people, not all of them. I would love to have photos of all of them, but there are a lot of people. We've got a process. So I have a tie-dye here because when I was thinking about process and what kind of blue and purpley image I could find, tie-dye came to mind. Our process originates with the idea of design thinking. So the first thing we have to do is empathize, right? I mean, it's kind of the first thing that I would argue it's really important to writing studies overall, this idea of empathizing. That leads to research. We need to understand our partners and what they need in order to help them reach their goals. Then we define and strategize. We take our research, and good research leads to the need for more research. So we scaffold out research questions and fill in gaps and start to put together what we think we have in mind, identify those gaps, do more research, et cetera, et cetera. Usually that kind of research process does lead to the identification of one or more problems. But at the Cube, we view problems as opportunities and work together to solve those problems. From there, we ideate, and actually we ideate throughout this entire process. Brainstorming is a thing we do all the time, right? We've got a problem. What's the solution? Are there opportunities here to do things in a new or interesting way? I'm a big believer in, get everything out of your head and then let's have a conversation. And it can be really hard to cultivate that, but I think it's super important, right? We've got to ideate all the time. Imagine best case scenario, figure out how we could reach best case scenario, and then consider what are we going to do when worst case scenario happens. From there, we build genuine tactile representations of those ideas that might look like a wireframe for a website. It might look like a couple of layout pages for a print publication. It might look like something written in a Google Doc that we are then going to take and move somewhere else. And then we test, and we test constantly. Testing is one of those things that, I don't need to talk to you about testing. You know what that is. Basically, what we do is we give stuff to actual audiences, get their feedback, and revise. And we do that until the feedback tips into being solidly good feedback. So everything is founded on design thinking. From there, I hate to be this person, but it does all start with funding. Without funding, we can't do any of it. My base philosophy is that people should be compensated for the work they do. And so we've got to have money to pay the people who make these amazing projects, right? We do bring in funding from a couple of different streams. Again, RAC is very generous. We do get some money from Cal. We write a lot of grants, so shout out to C for that as well. From there, we review pitches. A lot of times pitches come to us through our mutual networks. For example, we're working on a project right now that came about because someone in the college heard about a project that needed a little TLC, and Dr. McCardle brought that to me and asked us to do it, and generously provided the funding to make it happen. Pitches overall in a normal quote unquote budget year happen kind of on a rolling basis. If someone has an idea, we will accept a pitch, we'll look at it, the team gets together, figures out whether we're going to do it. Ultimately, it has to align with our mission. We do want to see a potential positive impact. And then, of course, funding and labor availability. People, again, most important part, right? It's important for me as director and for my grad assistant to collaborate and match people to projects based on a whole matrix of things. Often it's as simple as, here's what we're doing, what's most interesting to you, right? And then trying to pair people both with projects that need the skills that they have already, but also projects that need the skills that they most want to develop. And then we work to develop that. Then we scaffold backwards, anticipated completion date, considering the partner's needs, what do we have going on, work backwards from what we think will be the end. Of course, it's never the end, but at some point you do have to and work together to set realistic deadlines and goals. And we always want to make a positive impact, whether that is on, again, the single person who has said, I really think I need a new website, to giant organizations who need a helping hand. The goal is always to do good. Our internal process revolves around a series of 4 deliverables. This is actually new this semester. As we've gotten bigger, I've tried to put in place systems that are modeled on industry. So standard in UX and comms is a set of, we begin with a creative brief that tells us what we're doing, why we're doing it. Then we start doing the work. Throughout the work process, we do written status updates. And the reason why we do written ones is because that helps us get to a case study that we can then share, whether that is, me sharing at a conference or students sharing in their portfolios. We like to have something that people can refer to, 5 years down the line when they're thinking back on the work they did. those case studies are important. Each is designed to contribute to students' professional development and to their professional portfolios, and quite frankly, to the CUBE's professional portfolio. That leads me to projects. We've got 3 different kinds of projects at any given time. This is a thing that has changed. Initially, we were founded with the idea that we would support RAC/CAL ongoing publishing projects, and we've morphed into this sort of amazing thing. I don't even know what noun to put on it. Dr. Fidowa asked me earlier today, you know, are you a center? And I'm thinking, well, we're not really a center, but maybe we are. We've toyed with the word nexus, which I dislike. So if you have ideas for what noun we should put on this thing, please let us know in the Q&A. So we've got 3 different kinds of projects: permanently supporting, I hope as permanent as anything can ever be, permanently supporting publications in the department. The design and implementation of limited run special projects, meaning we are contracted to make a thing and have it, you know, deliver it and walk away from it. Or the design and implementation of special projects with ongoing support needs, which increasingly is most common as we move more into digital publishing and web development. Our permanent projects and publications include The Current, which is a quarterly magazine that we produce in tandem with our professional and public writing, editing and publishing capstone, WRA 480. We do it all from original pitch of idea to final layout. It's a super cool project, and C is going to talk about that today. Agnes Films is my colleague Alex Hidalgo's feminist film collective. They do amazing work. Check them out. Constellations is a peer-reviewed academic journal. It's sort of a foundational journal of cultural rhetorics. And Joggle is a really interesting journal that is about pedagogy and technology. And my colleague Marahung Limbu is the managing editor there. So what I'm going to do now is turn this over to C, my graduate assistant and project coordinator, to talk to you a little bit about The Current. C, you are on.
Hello, everyone. So as stated, my name is C, and I'm the graduate assistant for the CUBE. And I'm very, very fortunate to be only the 2nd ever graduate assistant for the CUBE, which means that I have been a part of moving and shaping things as they've rolled out this year. And I'll be talking about The Current because that is one of our foundational pieces. And for me, it's a very foundational piece because it inspired me to just kind of change the course of my academic goals and what I want to do with my life in the future. And without The Current, I would not have ended up here in RAC as the graduate assistant for the CUBE. So I owe the WRA 480 class and The Current magazine a whole lot for my academic, what I've achieved academically. Next slide, please. So as Kate said, The Current is a quarterly magazine that is produced by students for students. And we produce in addition to our four magazines, we also produce online exclusive pieces. And that gives students even more opportunity to write about things that they are passionate about. So we have, at any given time, we have pop culture articles, politics, deep dive into international affairs. We can have any sort of story that intrigues students that they want to research and tell others about. And as it says on the slide, we teach students about the digital publishing process from start to finish. That means that a student will pitch the idea, they will write their first draft. Other students will come in and give them both developmental edits and copy edits, and the whole thing will be worked into a finished project that they can then use in their portfolio. A lot of our students who have worked on The Current have gone on to have really high profile jobs in the publishing industry. So our class and our magazine produce people that can then take what they've learned into the professional world. And one of the big projects that The Current worked on this semester that I was fortunate enough to lead and gain some experience teaching a workshop on was branding and kind of just working our brand to be a little bit more representative of what we've morphed into. And so this semester we worked as a group to create a better About Us page on our website. And we decided on the slogan, making waves, staying current. And that really speaks to what the Current does. We make waves with what we decide to report on, but all of it is current and just unpacking things that students are concerned with now, whether it is pop culture or politics or movies or video games, whatever it is. And I believe that's all I have to say. Oh, sorry, I have one more slide. So these are just some quick facts about the Current that kind of expand what we do, because it's not just the WRA 480 class. It's a professional workplace that we run in tandem with the class. We work with our outside client who helps with our SEO and publishing. We developed a system for rolling deadlines that prepares our students not just for achieving deadlines for the semester, but also for how a real publication workplace would work. And that means that that's just one piece of the project management skills that we try to teach. And as I said before, all of the pieces that we publish are then able to be used later as portfolio pieces. And new this year, we started teaching more of branding concepts so that branding can take more of a role in professional development and the work that they're producing. Because it's important when you work in publishing to think about the branding and think about who you're working for and why, and how your content is always part of the brand. And then all of this comes together to just create students that are ready for the publishing industry, however they choose to pursue that. And that's all I got for you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, C. Well done. Okay, we've got some completed limited run special projects. We did, I'm laughing because the process for proofreading that book was extremely difficult. We were working from physically printed PDFs. And it was a real challenge for the interns who worked on that, both to get their heads around what the book is about, and to work with an academic monograph, and to do that with a pencil and printed pages. But we did do Dr. Dye's proofread for her book. We also put together my colleague Matt Rossi's has led the Rio Town reading series for several years now. I believe it's on hiatus at the moment. But he pitched us an idea, like, I'd love to do an anthology. So we did it, and it's really cool. And that was another kind of start to finish moment. We did a website redesign for Red Cedar Review. I think it was 2 years ago now. That was a lot of fun too. It's a very cool publication. And Spartan Speech we've since handed off to the intern Sam Block, who I believe now is working for Google. He now maintains it, but we did the original build. We've got some ongoing special projects that are in the support stage. Vim Magazine does a lot of their own design, but we do support them with design thinking, website maintenance, if they need to purchase. The Cube itself is undergoing a website overhaul this semester, so stay tuned for that. And the Trojan Mental Health Matters project, which was ginormous, I know not of a better word for what that was, does exist, and we support that. We did everything for this, content strategy all the way through to finished build. That was a big project. I'm very proud of it. Okay, so second project deep dive. I am going to turn over to Aiden Tompkinson, who is a junior in the Honors College, double majoring in experience architecture and mathematics, and who joined our team in October of 2021. Aiden is interested in the societal impacts of algorithms and enjoys creating cool, accessible things that aim to make the world a better place. Aiden is our UX intern. Well, right now, our one UX intern for our Holt Public Schools DE&I initiative project. And Kyla Chamberlain, who is also a junior, majoring in professional and public writing with a minor in public relations. Kyla has been an intern also since October 21 and is on this team. Kyla likes to journal in her free time and enjoys using writing to help others. So I am going to pass the mic to these two wonderful undergrad interns to talk to you about this project. You're on, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. So I'm Aiden. I was brought on as an undergraduate intern, specializing more in the user experience side. And I am ready for the next slide, KB. So we were approached in October by Holt Public Schools, namely by Matt and Heather, who are two super awesome people with relatively new titles. So Matt Morales is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Heather Finley is the Director of Mental Health Initiatives for Holt Public Schools. And in general, Holt has had a series of unfortunate events go down within the last year, and these two came to us and they presented us with the problem. They're like, hey, we really want to make a difference. We notice all these things that can be improved, and we don't know how to get there quite yet. So we were tasked with rebranding the current Holt DEI program and reestablishing the importance of DEI within schools, mostly via a creation of a new communication strategy, a really nice comprehensive website, and a social media campaign. And the biggest question we are asking ourselves in this is, how can we imagine a more inclusive space? And then what programs can we implement in order to get there? Next slide, please. So we are working with a really thorough research process, mostly looking at successful DEI campaigns and websites, what goes into them, what resources need to be available. And we're noticing a lot about how a lot of schools don't have really thorough DEI campaigns currently, which just makes our impact even better. And it's super interesting because the more we research, the more we realize the connections between DEI and anti-bullying, and even deeper when we look at like the root causes of issues with DEI and issues with bullying and how it all starts is more of the intersection of societal issues, even going deep within the education system and how different topics are presented. And the biggest thing is we're trying to create an underlying understanding of who everybody is and being able to celebrate different identities. Next slide, KB. So our design process is we are imagining a website, a complete overhaul of what they've got, a new social media, including Twitter, Instagram, and we're trying to get the superintendent on a TikTok. He's got a really fun personality. We think that would be kind of an exciting thing for students and staff. Within the website and social media, we are planning on providing a big group of like teaching recommendations and different resources, kind of training teachers how to present different topics. And then within that, strategies for implementation so that we're not just dumping things on a website, we're actually trying to push to make a difference. So other content would include updates on events, materials for the classroom, resources for educators, trying to put together some outreach programs for students, and then even further staff trainings for how they can present different issues and better engage with their students.
Thanks, Aiden. That was really great. So the backbone of what we're really working on here is the communication strategy. So within that, there's an audience strategy, a branding strategy, content strategy, and all of our research is really housed there. So a lot of what we were researching initially were the demographics of our audience and the communication styles of our audience. so that we really knew how to connect with them and how to reach them in the most effective way. We also did a really deep dive into the background of DEI to make sure that everybody had a basis of what diversity, equity, and inclusion really was, and then build up from there. So a lot of our knowledge and questions that we were asking and answers that came from meetings and conversations with those Holt representatives. And right before winter break, we sat down with the representatives and one of the students from Holt so that we could ask them questions and see what was needed from the inside. Next slide, please. So our design process is really collaborative. It's not just one person designing something, it's everybody bouncing ideas off of each other. So for example, like when we were naming the program, everybody came up with several names, and then we decided on Holt Inclusivity Coalition. And actually first we offered 2 choices to the Holt reps, and we all collectively decided that the Holt Inclusivity Coalition would be the best name that everybody agreed on. And the same type of process went with choosing a color scheme and a logo. Here's an image of a draft of our logo. It includes the name, Holt's mascot, the ram, and looking into the future for a more inclusive future. And a lot of the content that we're actually creating right now, something that we're working on is a checklist, mainly for the educators, but also for parents and students on how to be basically just like a good student and a good citizen to each other. And then as Aiden mentioned, our social media campaign that we're launching, we're either creating new accounts or rebranding the existing ones. And we're working on developing the website that's going to house all of our information. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyla and Aiden. That was great. We did narrow everything down to 2 names, and we were so certain that they were going to pick one name and then they picked the other name. So we have to do a little internal rebranding there. It's a big project. It's a blast. Next up, I would like to introduce Charlotte Batchelor. Charlotte is a junior studying professional and public writing with a minor in African and African American studies. Charlotte's passion for disability rights and accessibility originally led her to create the Detroit Accessibility Project in a class that she took with me for one tiny little project for a class. And it has turned into a big project. Charlotte designed this as an innovative solution to address the lack of accessibility standards in downtown Detroit venues. So I would like to pass the mic to Charlotte.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about Detroit Accessibility Project, or DAP, and some of our goals. So my ultimate goal is I want to make downtown Detroit accessible for everyone. I remember growing up as a kid, my grandmother was a wheelchair user, and the difficulties we had like trying to navigate the Eastern market, you know, with like a wagon full of flowers in a wheelchair. So my end goal for this is so a family with different disabilities on different spectrums can all go down to downtown Detroit and have a good time without one person feeling left out, one person unable to get into the building, one person feeling overwhelmed. We really want to make equitable entertainment spaces in downtown Detroit. Let me go to the next slide. So our anticipated deliverables, so to kind of accomplish this goal, we want to create accessibility guides. So similar to when you go to a theme park like Disney World or Universal Studios and they tell you, okay, you have to transfer out of your ECV into a manual wheelchair for this ride, or this ride you have to be this tall, or this ride has some sensory issues, or this ride people with prosthetics need to secure their prosthetics on. So we will be creating guides for those, both for the museums, the parks, the casinos, the historical sites, for all of those venues in downtown Detroit via a website and a mobile app with community members in mind, because Metro Detroit is very diverse, and we have a lot of visitors coming from the Tri-County area, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County, coming to downtown Detroit. So those diverse populations have been considered in some of our initial census research and other research on demographics. Okay, next slide. So my main goal is to set a precedent and bring accessibility to the forefront, because right now there is no accessible standard for these venues. Some places will have a mile-long laundry list of accessibility. Other people will say, we have a wheelchair accessible bathroom, but it takes stairs to get into our venue, which is like kind of an oxymoron. So we want to impact not just the visitors, but the key decision makers. So venue owners, people like Rock Holdings, people like the Illages, people like Mayor Mike Duggan, to account for the needs of the disabled community, and also to consider the ethnic diversity of Metro Detroit. So further on in our project, we want to have multilingual options on paper options, or, you know, we want to have maybe tours set up for people who have used different forms of foreign sign language or that thing. Always keeping DEI, even though this is a DEI project, really understanding the scope of DEI and the racial implications and the ethnic implications of this, because I am from Metro Detroit and I've seen firsthand how diverse it is. And I really want to honor and respect that and respect those members of the community to make sure all people are involved. All right, our next one. Oh, wait. Okay, yeah.
That's good.
That was it. Okay, cool. That was it. Sorry. Thank
I
you.
don't know
everyone.
how you covered all of that so succinctly. Thank you, Charlotte. And a huge thank you to the whole team. These projects slay me in the best possible way. I did not come up with these ideas. I facilitate them. Round of applause for the students who spoke today. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some slides that look like they are from a business presentation. Bear with me. We're going to talk a little bit about futures. Okay, so since 2018, I began this job in the summer of 2018. Again, was presented with this idea and said, see what you can do with this. I had no idea that we would end up doing what we're doing, and it has been just such an absolute delight to do. 2018, we had 4 projects. You can see 2022, we've got 19. I'm projecting actually pretty low for 23, given that next year could be a bad budget year. The growth, I don't know, if I gave this in a business talk, I think people would be impressed. As an academic, it's kind of strange for me to look at a bar graph, but here we are. People, again, the super important piece of the puzzle. One of the things I've had to figure out is how to balance the number of hours each intern wants to work. Someone who's on a graduate assistantship is supposed to work 20 hours a week. And with these kinds of projects, I'm sure you can imagine that it's not consistent 20 hours a week, right? So we have to do a kind of balance there. Anyone employed by the university across all of their university jobs can only work a certain number of hours a week. I believe that's 29. So, you know, if someone is working elsewhere on campus and working for the Cube, which is increasingly common, we have to be careful there. And we also want to make sure that people get enough hours. So working through university funding structures can be a challenge, because it's difficult to know from one year to the next exactly where we'll be sitting, right? We've got outstanding grant applications, et cetera, et cetera. So I've also projected pretty low here with the idea that what I have found is, although we do staff projects instead of job descriptions, a lot of times someone working on one project also can do some for another project. For example, Charlotte worked as our social media intern for the Cube for a while. Aiden is working on a couple of different projects. I might ask Kyla to do the same thing, but she doesn't know that. Well, now she does. And you know, so trying to maximize. I'm really in the business presentation, aren't I? We're going to maximize what we have as a way to continue to do this good work. And here, I don't know if we can afford 26 next year, right? But I'm going to do my best. And we hope that we can, because 26 people, 26 brains working together for a common goal is a really, really cool thing to see. Yeah, I have high hopes. I think this is where I line them up. So you'll see that I anticipate projects to grow at a slightly higher rate over the next year than people will grow, because what I'm hoping is that fewer people can. I say that with the caveat that, again, I'm very, very sensitive to labor and how labor works, and certainly don't want to overwork anyone or burn them out or make them sad. There we are. Also, the availability of students to hire. It's gotten tougher. So if you know anyone who might be interested in this sort of thing, send them my way. So again, we end kind of where we began. We benefit students and community partners because we put into action Cal's values. And we're lucky to have a college that has such values, and to have students who believe in those values, and to have community partners who are, I had a meeting with a new client not long ago. And he was just visibly shocked that we were going to do this for him at no cost to him. Because a lot of times we are working for nonprofits, and those folks can't afford a super slick web design company, right? So we're going to do it. And that's that. There's my academic works cited page to pair with my business slides. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening. Thank you in advance for your questions. Thank you to my wonderful team. Special thanks to my home department, who made all of this possible and continues to make it possible. And thanks to Cal for inviting me to do this today. Much appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kate. This is fascinating. We do have some questions. The first question is, I think intended for Kate, although I'd be interested to hear from everyone else as well. What is your favorite past project that you've worked on at the Cube?
That's like asking me who my favorite kid is. My favorite past project. I don't know. I feel sort of attached to all of them, right? Like the good writer in me gets attached to things. I think I'm going to say, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to name one. Okay. In the interest of taking risks and possibly making mistakes, I'm going to say the Cube itself, because it didn't exist and now it does, but also the Trojan Mental Health Matters project, which was to date the biggest project we had done, and I think has the farthest reach in terms of positive impact, and also led to the whole project.
It sounds really fascinating. Is there a website for that particular project that people can go to if they want to learn more?
For the Trojan project?
Yeah.
Yes. Give me a second here.
Put me on the spot. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. It's all one word, trojanmentalhealthmatters.org.
Wonderful. We also have more of a comment than a question from Constant Boudreau. Congratulations, Dr. Birdsall. Your students are pursuing relevant and interesting projects. Design and graphic levels could be elevated, but overall strong work. And I suggest that the last presenter, Charlotte, contact the City of Detroit's Office of Disability Affairs. She will find very committed staff who can brief her on what's currently being planned and implemented in Detroit. So Charlotte, if you haven't yet done so, by all means, check that out.
Thanks, Constance. Duly noted.
Mm-hmm. The third question is a question about the cube analogy. This person says, I like your geometric 3 Ps in the logo, but the visual leads me to wonder about the other 3 unseen faces of the figure of the cube. Are there 3 additional Ps visible from other perspectives? And maybe there's room for future expansion. And at any rate, keep on keeping on with a thumbs up.
Thank you. Interesting story about the logo. In 2018, when we had the idea, our then department chair and I sat down and were just spitballing ideas and came up with publishing process praxis. Now, whether or not process and praxis, yeah, we've got to have the third one, right? So what I did was worked with Chris Corneal's design lab. He leads the capstone in graphic design in art history and design, and worked with him and had a series of meetings, which I loved, with the graphic designers in that class. And they pitched, presented their ideas. I then brought all of those ideas back to our team, including students who were working for me at the time, a couple of our faculty members. And we decided on this one. I would like to go on record as saying that the one that we have was not my favorite one, but I am but one vote in this democracy. So yeah, I mean, to answer the is there room for growth question, absolutely. There's absolutely room for growth. There's always room for growth. Now you've got me thinking about the logo, and I probably don't need to be doing that right now, but I appreciate the question. Thank you.
C, you also raised your hands. Did you have thoughts on this particular question?
I just wanted to throw in one little thing is that we are, we're in the process of tweaking the branding of the Cube. And, with that process, we also ask ourselves the same question. And one thing that we are working on is, just adjusting our motto and coming up with something that's, different from the publish, process, praxis, because that's part of our name. But one thing we're bouncing is how to eloquently say more than just publishing, because we are, and that's kind of those blank faces of the cube that you don't quite see, because we do digital publishing, but we do so much more. It's not like every single thing we deliver is just a digital, like an open source book or just a simple website. There's more to it, because we're just always growing the levels of what we can deliver. We have a project coming up soon where we're going to venture into building a sales platform for an organization, and we haven't done something quite like that yet, and that's part of our growth. So we're always growing and changing and moving beyond just publishing. That's all I wanted to throw in.
I would also like to add that we have had an extremely difficult time to the point about design being elevated. Yes, we need more graphic designers, and unfortunately none of them are applying to our job ads. So if you know any student graphic designers that we could bring on, we have one who is fantastic, but who is graduating, and I live in fear of that day. So please send them to me.
Kate, how would someone apply, or if they had a pitch for you, how would they do that?
At this point, because we're revamping the website, I would advise against using the contact page. Email me directly. And I will pass it on to our team. Usually in terms of internships, I will send a call probably right after spring break for summer, depending on funding, and for fall. And we kind of go from there. And it's rolling too, right? As projects come in, when we got, pardon me, a CIEG grant to do Holt and another project and DAP, I was able to hire quite a few more people to staff those. So look for calls, but send me your graphic designers, please. Thank you.
So this is a question for the students, maybe 30 seconds per student. What do you hope to do post-graduation, and how will your experience at the Cube help with that?
I'll go first. I'm graduating in December, and obviously I have an interest in social media, digital marketing strategy, marketing communication. So I hope to continue the work of DAP, and hopefully it grows and that will become my full-time position. If not, just starting out, I would love to work in communications, working in the nonprofit sector, or continue to work in the DEI sector, because I feel like that work is important and I have the lived experience to help shape some of the information that people are getting in that area.
And then I can go next. So it's funny, I was just talking to the lead UX specialist about this today, Emily. She's like, what do you want to do post-graduation? So I'm supposed to graduate next spring. And I was saying, I would really like to find a position very similar to what I'm doing now. I mean, I really like how all of the projects I'm working on feel like they're really impacting other people's lives, which is something I've always wanted to do. I really like working in the nonprofit sector. I really like our Holt project. And I think my favorite thing about this internship is that I feel like I am constantly learning and I am constantly being pushed to learn new things. And it also allows me to not just focus on one thing. I like doing a ton of different things and holding a lot of different roles. So I'd like to do anything where I get to learn more and do more every day.
So I also was thinking about this lately because I've always thought like I'm going to be a student and that's all that I am. But now I'm graduating next year and I have to start thinking about my future. So my like dream job is to be a content strategist. But I think that the steps to get there would be like to be an editor for a couple years and a content writer for a couple of years and to build up that experience. And then I can ultimately be a content strategist for any type of corporation that I desire. But what I'm doing right now with the Cube is going to directly translate into that work. So I'm really happy that I'm getting this like real world experience right now, because I don't think that a lot of students are getting right now.
C, did you want to jump in as well?
Yeah, I can jump in. It's kind of a complicated question for me because I don't really know what I'm doing right now. I did not achieve my plan for after I finish this master's degree. So I am kind of shopping around for options and trying to figure out. My dream is to be a professor in either writing or English. I'm over in arts and cultural management right now. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how to gain that. It might be applying to more master's programs next year. It could be substitute teaching until an option presents itself. I don't really know what that looks like for me yet, just because my plans hit a little snag and now I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do in the fall? What am I going to do in the year after that? So we'll see where I end up.
Fair. I have been there. I understand. And I'm sure that the work that you've done at the Cube is going to help no matter where you end up. All right, we are just about out of time. So I want to thank you again, Kate, C, Kyla, Aiden, and Charlotte. It looks like it's almost 4 o'clock. So we have to wrap it up now, but I really enjoyed learning about experiential learning and the Cube and the great work that you've done and all of the different projects that you've taken on. I'd also like to thank our attendees for taking the time out of their day to watch. It really means a lot to us to have so many alumni and donors that care about the work and the research that's happening in the College of Arts and Letters. So I hope that you all have a great rest of the week and go green.
Go white.
Go white.
Go white.